The night descended upon the city like a suffocating blanket, with a sudden inexplicable power outage that transformed the bustling metropolis into a gaping maw of darkness. Streetlights flickered out, buildings stood as towering silhouettes against the starless sky, and the ever-present hum of the city life was eerily silenced. In this unexpected void, Alex, a young, ambitious journalist with a knack for uncovering hidden truths, found himself swallowed by an unfamiliar, unnerving version of the city he called home. Alex's heart raced as he navigated through the chaotic streets, the darkness amplifying every sound into a potential threat. His only guide through the impenetrable blackness was the weak glow of his phone's flashlight casting long, monstrous shadows across the cracked pavements. The air was thick with a palpable sense of dread, and Alex couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched from the unseen corners of the night. As he turned a corner, a sudden movement caught his eye. Two figures in the distance were locked in what seemed like a violent altercation. One was desperately trying to escape, while the other, taller and imposing, exuded an aura of controlled menace. Alex's journalistic instincts kicked in, and he inched closer, his heart pounding in his chest. The dim light from a nearby window illuminated the scene for a fleeting moment, revealing the face of the aggressor. It was a visage that would haunt Alex's nightmares for days to come. Cold, emotionless eyes that seemed to bore into his soul. A twisted smile playing on the lips, as if reveling in the terror of his victim. The man, known in hushed tones as the Shadow, was a figure shrouded in rumors and fear, a specter in the criminal underworld of the city. As their eyes met, a cold shiver ran down Alex's spine. The Shadow's gaze lingered on Alex, a silent warning, before he disappeared into the night, leaving his victim whimpering in the alley. The encounter was brief, but it left a lasting, chilling impression on Alex. His mind raced with questions. Who was this man? What was his story? And why did the mere sight of him evoke such primal fear? Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, Alex decided to delve into the mystery of the Shadow. Little did he know, this decision would lead him down a path of paranoia and terror, where the line between reality and nightmare would blur beyond recognition. The blackout had plunged the city into darkness, but for Alex, it was just the beginning of an even darker descent. The dawn broke with an uneasy stillness, as if the city itself was holding its breath. The power outage had ceased, but the darkness within Alex's mind lingered, growing like a cancerous shadow. Sleep had evaded him, his thoughts consumed by the sinister figure of the Shadow. With the first rays of light piercing through his blinds, Alex's determination solidified. He needed to uncover the truth behind this enigmatic, terrifying man. His investigation began at the public library, a haven of archived newspapers and criminal records. The fluorescent lights flickered ominously overhead as Alex scoured through the old documents. Whispered rumors and hushed conversations led him to a series of articles about unresolved crimes, all bearing the sinister hallmark of the Shadow. The details were scarce, shrouded in secrecy, but one thing was clear. This man was not just a myth. He was a predator lurking in the city's underbelly. As night fell, Alex's pursuit took a sinister turn. Returning to his apartment, he found an envelope slid under his door. No return address, no stamp, just his name scribbled in a jagged handwriting. Inside a single cryptic message, "You're looking too closely. Eyes are everywhere." The words crawled under his skin, sending a shiver down his spine. Someone was watching him. Someone knew of his quest. That night's sleep was a distant dream. Alex tossed and turned, his mind a battlefield of paranoia and fear. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind against his window morphed into imagined footsteps and whispered threats. The darkness of his room seemed to press in on him, suffocating, alive with unseen dangers. The nightmares began that night, vivid, horrifying dreams where the shadow stalked him through endless, twisting alleys, always just a step behind. In these dreams, Alex ran for his life, but his legs moved as if through molasses, and the shadow's chilling laugh echoed all around, a sound that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Daylight brought no respite. The world seemed to warp around him. Strangers on the street glanced at him with knowing looks, their eyes hiding malevolent secrets. The city itself felt like a giant maze designed by the shadow to trap him, its streets leading him in circles back to his own fears and insecurities. But Alex couldn't stop. The truth was out there, lurking in the darkness. He dived deeper into the city's seedy underbelly, questioning shady figures who recoiled at the mention of the shadow. Each step forward seemed to draw more eyes on him, more whispers in the shadows. He was a moth drawn to a flame, unable to resist the pull of the mystery, even as it consumed him. The world had become a distorted, nightmarish version of itself. Alex's once logical and ordered reality now teetered precariously on the brink of madness, each day blurring further into a miasma of fear and paranoia. The city, once vibrant and alive, now seemed to mock him with its twisted shadows and whispering winds, as if in league with the shadow. Plagued by sleepless nights and haunted by relentless nightmares, Alex's grasp on reality began to crumble. The boundaries between waking and dreaming blurred, with ghastly visions bleeding into his daytime hours. Faces in the crowd transformed into leering, sinister masks, and the once comforting solitude of his apartment became a prison of isolation and terror. Determined to confront his tormentor, Alex set out to find the shadow. His investigation led him to the heart of the city's derelict district, a place where even the bravest souls dared not tread after dark. The buildings loomed over him, their windows like dead, unblinking eyes. The oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily on Alex, each step forward an immense effort against the suffocating fear. In a decrepit alleyway, where the stench of decay hung thick in the air, Alex finally came face to face with his nightmare. The shadow emerged from the darkness, a spectral figure both familiar and terrifyingly alien. His voice was a cold whisper that seemed to slither into Alex's mind, speaking truths and lies in equal measure, twisting his perception of reality. The confrontation was surreal, a dance of shadows and light. The shadow's words pierced through Alex's psyche, revealing his deepest insecurities and fears. He spoke of a world beyond the veil of sanity, tempting Alex with forbidden knowledge that promised power but threatened utter madness. After the encounter, Alex found himself spiraling out of control. The city's cacophony became a symphony of madness, each sound a sinister reminder of the shadow's omnipresence. He saw signs and omens in the most mundane occurrences, believing them to be messages from his nemesis. His once trusted friends and colleagues became potential spies, their every word and gesture scrutinized for hidden meanings. Cut off from those he once relied on, Alex's isolation grew. His apartment transformed into a sanctuary and a cell, its walls closing in on him, whispering dark secrets in the dead of night. The line between his own thoughts and those implanted by the shadow blurred, leaving him to question his sanity. The world had twisted into a macabre tapestry of shadows and deceit. Alex, once a seeker of truth, now found himself ensnared in a web of paranoia and fear, every thread woven by the enigmatic shadow. His reality had become a grotesque parody, where every face hid sinister intentions, and every whisper was a portent of doom. Amidst this maelstrom of madness, a sliver of hope appeared. A clue, seemingly insignificant, emerged from the chaos. A photograph, old and tattered, depicting a young woman with fear etched into her eyes. On the back, scrawled in hurried handwriting, was an address and a date, the very next day. Alex's heart raced. Was this the Shadow's next intended victim? A chance to preempt a tragedy, to save a life, and perhaps redeem his own? Driven by a desperate need to break free from the Shadow's psychological labyrinth, Alex set out, the photograph clutched tightly in his trembling hand. The city streets, once familiar, now felt like a twisted maze designed to confuse and disorientate. Buildings leered at him, their windows glinting like malevolent eyes in the dim streetlight. The address led him to an abandoned warehouse, its walls scarred with the ravages of time and neglect. A sense of foreboding clung to the place, as if it were a stage set for a final tragic act. Alex's footsteps echoed through the empty halls, each sound amplified into a cacophony of eerie reverberations. As he ventured deeper, the atmosphere thickened, heavy with a stench of decay and the palpable sense of unseen ease watching. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, but he pressed on, driven by a mix of fear and determination. In the heart of the warehouse, Alex found her, the woman from the photograph, bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. Relief flooded through him, followed swiftly by horror as he realized the grim truth. It was a trap. The room seemed to spin as he heard the slow, deliberate clapping of hands from the shadows. The Shadow emerged, his presence a suffocating blanket of dread. His voice was a venomous purr filled with malice and triumph. "You're so predictable, Alex. A puppet dancing on my strings." The realization hit Alex like a physical blow. He had been manipulated from the start, every step, every clue carefully orchestrated to lead him here. The warehouse became a nightmarish arena, a twisted game of cat and mouse. The Shadow toyed with Alex, his words slicing deeper than any blade. Every revelation, every unveiled secret was designed to break Alex's spirit, to shatter his mind beyond repair. In this horrific tableau, Alex struggled not just for his physical survival, but for his very sanity. The line between reality and illusion blurred, the warehouse transforming into a labyrinth of fear and madness. The echoes of his own footsteps taunted him, and the shadows seemed to whisper his name, dragging him deeper into despair. The trap was not just a place, but a state of mind, a descent into a darkness from which there seemed no escape. The world as Alex knew it had crumbled into an abyss of despair and madness. Trapped within the decrepit walls of the warehouse, his reality had become a nightmarish landscape, a domain where the Shadow reigned as a malevolent overlord, orchestrating a symphony of terror and psychological torment. The warehouse, with its labyrinthine corridors and oppressive darkness, had transformed into a twisted reflection of Alex's fractured mind. The air was thick with the stench of fear and decay. The walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent life of their own, whispering secrets in a language of insanity. In this hellish realm, Alex found himself in a bathtub, the cold porcelain against his skin, a stark contrast to the feverish heat of his thoughts. His mind was a battleground, a maelstrom of conflicting emotions and fractured memories, each more tormenting than the last. The water in the tub rippled with his every shudder, reflecting a distorted image of his face, a visage marred by fear and despair. The Shadow loomed over him, a specter of dread, his voice a serpentine hiss that slithered into Alex's ears, filling his head with nightmarish visions. "You cannot escape, Alex. You are mine, body and soul," he taunted, his words echoing in the damp, shadow-filled room. The room spun around Alex, the walls closing in, the ceiling pressing down, as if the very building sought to crush him under its weight. Hallucinations plagued him, grotesque images flickering in and out of existence, blurring the line between reality and the macabre fantasies of his mind. Amidst this chaos, Alex fought to cling to his identity, to the fragments of the man he once was. He grappled with his inner demons, the guilt, the fear, the doubt, each a chain that bound him to this torment. The water in the tub swirled with his turmoil, a whirlpool of despair threatening to drag him under. The final struggle was a harrowing sequence of mental and emotional agony. Alex's cries echoed off the walls, a symphony of pain and desperation. The shadow's presence was omnipresent, a force that fed on his fear, growing stronger with each moment of weakness. In the end, the battle was not one that could be won with strength or courage. Overwhelmed by the relentless assault on his psyche, Alex succumbed to the psychological manipulation. The tragic, self-inflicted demise was not just a physical act, but a surrender of the soul, a final capitulation to the darkness that had consumed him.